My name is Marvin, and I'm the CEO and one of the co-founders of ditCraft.
I'm Yannick, and I'm the CTO and co-founder of ditCraft.
I'm Sebastian, co-founder and chief scientist at ditCraft.
ditCraft is a platform which strives to achieve software excellence. So we are trying to combine the knowledge power of the community with a novel protocol to decentralize the software development process.
ditCraft is about introducing a DAO-based approach into the software development world. So we kind of want to bring democratization, incentivization, and decentralization into the world of software development.
It's about using a community in order to help solving one of the most fundamental problems, namely generating code excellence.
At ditCraft, we believe that software is the most essential building stone when it comes to the advances of our digital society. So we think that naturally the requirements that we have on this software is very high, and at the same time developers are struggling to fulfill these requirements.
We don't have resources, we don't have time, we don't have developers in order to reach software excellence, given the limited resources we have. With ditCraft, developers have access to a platform that allows them, through principles of a DAO, to call the community in order to vet code or to vet an architecture or even analyze whether a feature request makes sense.
And this is our goal at ditCraft, to develop tools and a platform to take the weight off the shoulders of the developers and spread it out over the community and making use of that.
ditCraft solves several problems with the software development lifecycle. One of them is the current malgovernance, especially in the open source area, where project owners often neglect the needs of the community,
where only a few people are in charge of what's being developed and what is being passed into the master branch.
We're decentralizing project ownership. We're using DAO principles in order to allow the community to decide what kind of push will be accepted in the next branch, and this way change the way the open source community is incentivized.
And also we think that software development often lacks a monetary incentivization and incentives as well.
Software projects stop, or some critical bugs get overseen because the open source developers are not incentivized enough to do their proper work, and we are really putting another layer of incentivization on top of this development.
People don't have enough time to just scrutinize code. This way, bugs naively come into the code and can be exploited later on. With ditCraft, we have now a community which can just be called and do a review, give feedback, analyze the code, analyze the design, and this way increase just the quality of the code.
The components that we use in order to kind of reach these goals are essentially three. The first thing is the dit platform, which is the whole protocol that we have in combination with our smart contracts and with everything that we have protocol and idea-wise. And the two other main components that we have software-wise are at first the ditCLI, which is the dit client that we use, which is the decentralized Git client involving voting, staking, and everything on top of Git.
So you can stake, you can open a new proposal, and you can interact with the whole ditCraft ecosystem using the client. And then the third component comes into play, which is the dit Explorer. And the dit Explorer is a visualization of the whole ecosystem. There you can see all the repositories, the proposals, the contributors.
Interact and see everything that we have as code proposals, repositories, contributors to interact with it without a terminal, just directly from your browser.
You could say that there are no disadvantages at all, because we essentially wrap the Git client and put our protocol on top of it.
You don't need to relearn anything, you don't need to adapt, because the dit client is essentially wrapping the Git client. So you can use every command that you would use when you're using the Git client itself, but on top you get this layer that enables you to vote, to stake, and to participate in our DAO-based software development process. And so you don't need to learn anything new, with the upside of having all these new possibilities.
ditCraft is different to other related projects, for example, like Gitcoin or Panda Network, in the way that we really focus on using the community for code validation. So whenever we talk about a DAO, we use those DAO principles in the earliest stage of developing software. Namely, whenever there is a push to a repository, we will ask the community to first of all approve it.
With projects like Panda, for example, where the focus is more on the endpoint where the repository is actually stored, while we are focusing on the way of interacting with the repository itself, because we thought, what is the single point where we can get every developer that is involved, and that's the Git client, and that's exactly what we are working.
ditCraft is different, say, to blockchain projects in this field like Panda Network or Ostcoin, in the sense that we really focus on the code. So our incentive is to democratize, decentralize, and re-incentivize the way code is developed. And the way we do it is we really, are at the touch point where code is generated, namely through the prominent Git client.
We're not trying to be the next GitHub or be some other platform, but we're really trying to get to the developers by our client software.
GitHub, Bitbucket, and GitLab are repository providers. They are not blockchain agnostic, and while we are not a repository provider. We are a platform which supports all kinds of repositories with our novel protocol on top of it for the access and management of the repository.
So we are repository agnostic. We support all standard repository providers and just bring DAO-based principles on top of a repository. Blockchain developers are, the perfect adopters of our platform. I mean, blockchain is about economics, about incentive protocols, about tokens, about rewards, and also about developing smart contracts, which is nothing else than open source code.
Blockchain devs are already kind of used to staking and to voting and making decentralized decisions, you could say.
The concept of a DAO and tokenary incentivization is also very much widespread right now in the blockchain space, and so we're introducing that into software development. So developers can earn while they are doing a review of other code and are being incentivized through our token mechanics to do that.
Blockchain developers can leverage all of the principles in their software development cycle. This way, by the way, also earn some tokens for their community contribution, and prove that blockchain is not only about decentralization of nodes, but also in a much larger space about decentralization of software development.
They can also earn tokens and start to build up their decentralized reputation on ditCraft.
It brings the whole principles of the blockchain community into the software development lifecycle. So it's about decentralization, about democratization, about incentivization through tokens, through cryptoeconomic protocols, the way software is developed. And this way, we get rid of classical problems like, centralized silos. In this sense, it means that we don't have a centralized project owner anymore. And we don't have, the problems that any good open source code contribution will not be appreciated through the community.
ditCraft in 5 years will be the #1 platform where you go to if you search for software excellence, and we will have a huge community approving and contributing to code changes. Yeah, essentially achieving software excellence.
ditCraft in 5 years, hopefully on every machine that's out there that's being used by a developer. Would be very great to see a lot of projects that are well established right now to use our platform, to use our consensus mechanism to have democratic governance into their software development process. That'd be very cool to see.
It will be the #1 community place for developers in order to scrutinize not only their code, but get feedback in all stages of a software development life cycle. It starts with the analysis of the requirements for a project, or even prior to that, checking whether there is already some ongoing research that can, for example, solve the problem which one wants to implement. One can then ask the community to give feedback in all the stages, and this way, create much better code, much better software with more fun and with more community feedback and with smaller budgets.